understand fairly well. But to be effective, technology needs to be complemented by two other elements. One element is people, and the other element is process. When we're talking about people, we're really talking about security awareness. It does not matter if the people within the computer department are fairly aware about how to protect their infrastructure. Every single user within every department of the organization needs to be aware of their responsibilities vis-à-vis information. And the other aspect is process, and this one is also very difficult. Why is process so difficult? Well, when we look typically at security, one good example is when you visit a building or an organization. The first time you visit the building, you're asked for credentials, maybe a piece of ID like CPR or IGAMA number. What happens the second, third, or fourth time? You already know the security guard. Hey, it's you again. No problem. Please let you in. So process, it's about being consistent. It's about being rigorous. If you're not consistent and rigorous on how you approach security, you're never going to be successful in security. Security is not something you do once. It's something you must do constantly, and you must do rigorously. It's not an optional item. Let me give you one other interesting example. This particular one has been localized, as some of local institutions have experimented the problems associated with it. It's an ATM scam. In this particular case, a specific device gets fixed on the ATM machine. Once it gets fixed, it looks like a normal ATM machine. But having the card or the card information is not enough to actually get into somebody's bank account. You need a little bit more. So you take a little booklet holder and you put a small pinhole camera. Inside this pinhole camera, you're able to actually see what the person is typing and what is appearing on the screen. So you know the account numbers, balances, as well as the PIN code. What is inside that camera holder is actually a very simple device. It's a pinhole camera, laptop battery, and a wireless device. So you don't need it to be physically there to actually capture the information. And see, in technical terms, when we talk about security, we simply refer to this as game over. You have the card, you have the PIN, you have enough to actually get the information. But there's many variations on this. Coming from Canada, ATMs are actually many kinds of attacks. One example happened a few years ago is they used to use a tow truck, simply get to the ATM machine, tie it around the ATM, and simply walk away with the entire ATM. So you don't need a PIN code then. So it's a little bit of what we call a brute force kind of approach. But some people got more sophisticated. So what these people decided to do is to buy old ATM machines. Why not? And replace the inside of the ATM machine. So instead of having the real ATM machine, you have a personal computer. And now you put this in a busy area like a shopping center. You paint it with the bright colors of the bank, and you're open for business. And they were quite sophisticated. You put the card in, you put the PIN code. When it comes to receive the money temporarily out of order, and they even give you the directions to the nearest ATM machine. Please, a few meters away, we have another, thank you for serving you, and sorry we cannot help you right now. Now, once you have this, again, same situation. You have the card number, you have the PIN number. Technically, we call this game over in security. And I'm sure you must have other examples as well. The previous speaker, Bruce, talked briefly also about email scams. Now, email scams have become extremely important for several reasons. One is because they're easy to launch. They can be launched from anywhere. And it's a real slow, what we call showstopper. Because we have financial institutions that were in a hurry to deploy new banking systems. Everything looked bright, and all of a sudden, a very simple method slowed down the implementation of this. Not only that, these systems look very genuine. When you click on it, it looks like the real website. They ask you for user IDs, passwords, birthdays, credit cards, everything to actually impersonate you on the internet or actually purchase goods using your own personal information. Now, to make matters worse, financial institutions, when they're trying to prevent this, what they typically do, they send another emailer to their customers. Please ignore the email scams that are coming. Now, you have to look at this from the perspective of the user. I get an email, looks like the real thing, but it's a scam. Then I get another email telling me that the other one was a scam. Which one do you believe? You look kind of confused. What some organizations have decided to do is to go back to the old mail and actually mail physical letters to their customers to continue establishing a better relationship. But it's not just banks that fall into this. One example is obviously organizations like, especially have high coverage like Microsoft. Everybody has got Microsoft in their own environments. If you receive an email that says, oh, we have real serious problems, this is a new update to the environment, the educated users will probably stop. But the average user, which does not have security awareness at their fingertips, will probably click on that link. If the antivirus is not up to date, this kind of will automatically propagate within the infrastructure. What that really means is trouble for our organizations. The attacks are increasing at a very fast rate. Not only they're increasing at a fast rate, we need to respond in much different ways. When we look at the example of the Code Red or SQL Slammer, let's look at the typical scenario. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, the incident happens. You actually have 15 minutes to respond. What happens at 3 o'clock in the morning? Most organizations do not have their security staff sitting there looking for an attack to take place. By the time you try to log in, your entire network is completely jammed with traffic. So you're not able to log in to actually fix the problem. So today you have to go beyond just manual processes to respond to these attacks. You have to introduce automation, and you have to introduce better approaches to respond in a much more effective way. One important question then becomes, how do we handle all these kind of attacks, and how do we prioritize the protection for our own infrastructure? There's two things that we need to quantify. The first one, what is the value of the information you're trying to protect? What is the value of your customer list? What is the value of your account balances that you keep? The second one is against whom you're trying to defend yourselves. Are you trying to defend yourselves against occasional hackers? Are you trying to defend yourselves against insiders? Most attacks still happen from insiders. Are you trying to defend yourselves against, for example, electronic espionage, a competitor? Or are you trying to defend yourselves against the foreign government? Why is this important? Because the way you need to defend yourselves is completely different. Let me give you an example. One, today you get attacked by a Trojan horse. It's typically maybe a hacker somewhere with limited resources that develops some creative software that bypasses the existing infrastructure. But what about these systems that keep track of your behavior? What do we typically have within your own, when you go inside a browser, they keep track about the clicks and which websites through special cookies. There's software to protect against this called spyware, we typically call. Now, these kind of organizations have got a different motive behind that. It's profit. So they have much more resources available to them to develop more sophisticated systems. That's why today when you have a spam, tomorrow, the next day, somebody figure out how to bypass the spam. They have people full-time analyzing how the software that protects you works so they can counter-defend themselves in a much more effective way. And they have come up with some very brilliant ways. Sometimes you see text, but the text is the same color as the background. So when the analyzing of spam comes in, it reads text, but you don't see it. So this automatically bypasses the infrastructures or the countermeasures that you have put in place. So what are some examples of types of attacks? One is what we call service interruption. This we typically call denial of service, is also an equivalent term. Somebody can intercept your own information. This easily happens when the information you're sending is not encrypted. Most organizations today still send unencrypted email, or when they dial into their systems, they do not use encrypted passwords. Information can be modified, or information can be fabricated. I can send an email to you that impersonates somebody else, and it becomes highly believable. But today we have also two other classifications of attacks, what we call passive and active. In passive attacks, the attacker is basically just recording or learning information. Where in active attacks, he's actually inserting information and modifying it to play a more active role. To select the types of controls that you need to have a prioritization mechanism. The prioritization mechanism needs to have two primary conditions. One is the likelihood of occurrence of the attack, and the second one, what is the consequence to the organization, or we sometimes refer to as the business impact. In order for you to do this entire analysis, you need to have a structured approach. We sometimes